So, welcome everyone. Maybe let's wait for one more minute to kind of allow everyone to come in and settle, and then we'll start in a minute. I hope everybody can hear me well and see the slides well. And with that, I think I will kick off the presentation. And again, a warm welcome to everyone joining us today. We are very excited to host today's session and share this hour with you to talk about a rather new narrative that companies can follow to support climate action. Our presentation is titled Corporate Contributions, Supporting Climate Projects for Global Net Zero. In the next 45 minutes, we will cover a range of topics with regards to contributions. We will start with talking about the voluntary carbon market and how it can enable companies to take climate action within certain standards. Then we will talk about this new contribution claims approach, which is being developed in this market, and how it differs from previous solutions such as offsetting. And then we will cover our own approach with regards to contribution claims and what we offer to companies who would like to engage with this concept and this method. We will also see how contributions fit within a corporate climate action strategy and what the benefits would be for your organization. And at the end, we will leave some time for your questions as well. I am Burcu from the partnerships team at ClimatePartner Impact, and I will be presenting today together with my colleague Sofia, who is our expert carbon market analyst. And before we dive into the topics, for our first-time joiners especially, we would like to say a few words about ClimatePartner and ClimatePartner Impact, or CPI in short. So CPI was founded in 2022 as the project development entity of ClimatePartner. ClimatePartner is a leading solutions provider for climate action, and it was founded in 2006. We are around 500 experts consulting more than 6,000 companies on different steps of their climate action journey. As the project development unit of ClimatePartner, CPI develops high-quality climate projects around the world. And at CPI, we have in-house expertise and experience in all aspects of project development. And at CPI, our main mission is to develop innovative projects with positive environmental and social impacts that empower communities. And with that introduction, I will leave the floor to Sofia for her to share her expertise in the voluntary carbon market and explain this new contribution claims topic to us.
Thank you very much, Burcu. And hello to everyone who is joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you guys here today. And also thank you, Burcu, so much for kicking us off and introducing ClimatePartner Impact. So like Burcu mentioned, ClimatePartner Impact is invested in developing impactful projects that deliver positive environmental and social outcomes to the communities where we operate. And the question that I would like to sort of kick us off with today, to sort of set the scene, is why are we doing that and how are we doing that? Just briefly. And the answer to that question, I think we all already know. But we are going through a severe climate crisis. And this climate crisis is related to many other environmental problems on our planet. It is absolutely essential that we do something about these problems. And the crisis is so urgent that we need to use all the tools that we have available in our toolbox. And now that's why. Why are we developing these impactful projects. And how are we developing them? We're using the voluntary carbon market as a tool. So the voluntary carbon market, it is one of those tools that I just mentioned. It is available to us as a way to tackle climate change. And what makes the voluntary carbon market interesting as a tool for climate action is the structure and assurance that this market offers us. Projects on the voluntary carbon market are developed according to approved methodologies. They are listed in public registries, and they are validated and verified by third-party entities and certified against set standards. So these are assurance mechanisms that the voluntary carbon market offers us. And while none of those mechanisms ensure perfection, they do make it more difficult to cut corners. And if we want to scale up climate finance globally, which is something that we would like to do, this type of structure and assurance is really necessary to keep an overview of what we're doing and making sure that we're doing it in an okay way. So that is why we at ClimatePartner Impact have chosen to operate under the voluntary carbon market and similar impact markets to generate the impact which we are aiming for, which is our goal. And we are doing that while utilizing all of these available structures. So that answers kind of this first question of why and how are we at ClimatePartner Impact developing these projects. But going back a little bit more towards what's happening today, this market has been existing for a long time, and now over the past few years, the voluntary carbon market has been made aware of some fundamental risks and issues. These risks and issues include things like projects not operating or achieving as intended, money being diverted away from internal emission reductions, and unclear communication resulting in the criticism of false narratives. Now, these issues and risks are something that we at ClimatePartner Impact take very seriously, and that is also taken very seriously in the market. And there are lots of market-wide changes happening to address these issues. As a project developer, we at ClimatePartner Impact have the power to ensure that our projects are good and support the overall mitigation of global emissions, deliver real benefits to the communities where they are located, and the environments that they are located in. But in addition to doing that, we also want to ensure that the financing of our projects are part of a holistic climate action strategy and do not cause any confusion in terms of what's been done or create any false narratives. So that leads me to the topic of today. In order to take the responsibility that we feel we have, ClimatePartner Impact has been looking into the potential of financial contributions to our projects using this new contribution narrative. And that is what Burcu and I would like to take the rest of the time in this webinar to talk to you guys about. Talking a bit more about what contribution claims are, what the benefits that they can offer us are, and how we are working with this new model at ClimatePartner Impact. So we have been working on this contribution claims model for more than a year, and we are together with other market participants trying to develop comprehensive concepts and consistent and reliable best practice guidance. So we kicked off our work last year with a comprehensive white paper discussing the ins and outs of the contribution concept. And following that, we've participated in working groups and stakeholder discussions for the development of guidance documents across the market. So today, we will give you a glimpse of the concept and the solution that we are working on. But we also really do encourage you to take the time to read more about this new concept, both our white paper, but also other standard documents and guidance documents available out there. But what are contribution claims? What is the contribution claims model? Essentially, the contribution claims model is a new communications narrative which comes with redefined rules and possibilities different from what we are used to on the voluntary carbon market. But the primary change when we talk about this new model of financial contributions is the story that companies tell in their external communication. The communication around the contribution claim narrative tells the story of collaborative effort. Essentially, by making a financial contribution to any kind of impact project, we are contributing to the outcomes of that project. And if that project reduces or removes greenhouse gas emissions, we are also contributing to the communal effort of mitigating global emissions. So fundamental to this new story is the focus on global effort, on communal efforts, and our individual or our own company's contribution to that communal effort. Now, this story is quite different from the stories which we are used to telling under the offsetting narrative, which has been the norm for many years. So under the offsetting narrative, we tell the story that our financing activities are compensating for the negative impact that we have through our emissions. And the criticism here is focused at our primary responsibilities, our own negative impact, and that responsibility does not go away when we fund efforts elsewhere. That's what the criticism around offsetting is kind of centered around, or one of the criticisms. And then additionally, the communication around this claim has been experienced as a little bit unclear and sometimes inflated. So by changing the story that we tell with this contribution narrative, we can ensure that our communication is more transparent and that those listening can clearly understand what actions have actually been taken and that our efforts are part of a bigger communal goal. So that's the story component of it. But the financing activities that we take, they still have to be part of a holistic climate action strategy. What that means is that we need to focus internally and take real responsibility for our emissions. We can do this by keeping a greenhouse gas inventory, setting emission reduction targets, and working actively on achieving those targets. But then we can go beyond that by financing activities outside of our own supply chain. And when we do that, essentially what we do is that we don't only commit to cleaning our own house, but we say that we are going to join our neighbors, our community, our friends in our own community to clean the street that we live on. We take responsibility outside of our own direct environment, outside of our own company. So we can take that extra responsibility by dedicating finances towards the achievement of the global goals and creating that impact outside of the supply chain. So that's essentially what the contribution model is. You take responsible financial decisions of financing activities outside of your supply chain, and then you can tell the story of collaborating with others towards achieving that common goal. Now, the contribution model, it opens a few doors for us that were not open before. And this is also something that we want to make use of. So first of all, when we use the offsetting narrative and we compensate for our emissions, the only type of impact which we are able to finance is climate impact because we're compensating for emissions. So we can only compensate by by funding emission reductions and removals. But when we make contributions, we are not compensating for any negative impact that we have. We're just doing a contribution to something that we would like to support. And that means that we can contribute to any kind of impact that we think is important. For example, we can increase our focus on biodiversity and contribute to more holistic solutions. Secondly, when we don't have to compensate for our emissions like we do under the offsetting narrative, we are also more flexible in when our financing goes to the project. When we compensate, the outcomes that we finance need to be already achieved. But when we contribute, we are free to provide early stage finance. And this opens the door to provide that really urgently needed early stage finance to the implementation partners so that they can really develop those amazing projects that we want them to develop. So for us, basically, the contribution narrative, it is a great opportunity to clarify the communication and communicate transparently about what we're actually doing. But it is also a possibility to widen our impact and be more flexible in our project financing. So that just kind of sets the scene about what a contribution model is and why we are working with this new model. And now Burcu is going to take over and explain a little bit more in detail how we at ClimatePartner Impact have developed this model and what else we're doing.
Thank you very much, Sophia, for sharing all that information and insight with us. And yeah, as Sophia mentioned, to take the opportunity of this new narrative, we at CPI have developed a new contribution offering to complement our standard project development offer. And there are two key components here. The first is that contribution allows flexibly supporting early stage projects without high budgets or long-term commitments. And the second key component is that it allows to support co-benefits of carbon projects, such as biodiversity enhancement or improved well-being of communities. So let me take you through the process step by step. And I will give an overview now, but we will go through each step with a little bit more detail after. So as a first step of your journey, impact contribution journey with us, you choose a project based on your preference and interest. And the second step is about determining your budget and, depending on that budget, contributing to an exclusive share of a project you chose. And the third step is on us completely. Here, we handle the implementation and management of the project that you support. And at the fourth step, you receive a communications package and a contribution certificate from us. This will help you claim your contributions transparently and credibly. And finally, once the project outcomes are achieved, we will issue and retire the related credit units to ensure the integrity of the activity of the project. So let's get into the details of each step slowly. So what kind of projects can you choose as a first step, and how do you decide? So initially, you can think about what kind of positive impact is the most essential for you and for your stakeholders. Would you like to focus on social impacts or purely climate impacts or on plastic pollution, for instance? So you can choose one of the projects from our portfolio that aligns best with your impact goals. In our portfolio at CPI, we have nature-based solution projects such as reforestation, blue carbon, or soil organic carbon. These projects would focus more on the climate and environmental benefits. We also have social impact focused projects, including improved cook stoves or small-scale biogas plants, and these would benefit the communities from a rather health and well-being perspective. And we also have renewable energy, plastic upcycling, or biochar projects in our portfolio. So now that you've chosen your project, what is your budget for contribution? How can you determine your budget? Guidance in the market introduces three ways to determine your budget. The first one is ton for ton approach. Here, you can calculate your footprint and contribute to a project that will match your footprint amount. The second one is money for ton approach. Here, you can allocate a contribution budget based on an internal carbon price you determine. In other words, you multiply your emissions by your internal carbon price and funnel that collected carbon fee into climate projects with positive impacts. And finally, you have the money for money approach. And here you can just allocate a share of your revenue or profit for your contribution. So in these last two approaches, the contribution outcomes do not need to match the unabated emissions of your company. This means that allocated budget can be distributed more freely towards a diverse portfolio. For instance, you can contribute towards early stage projects, you can contribute to new and innovative methodologies that needs financing, or verified outcomes from other impact markets, such as plastics or biodiversity. So these two approaches would give you a bit more flexibility in terms of what kind of projects you can support. So based on that budget that you determined, we offer companies the option to make partial contributions towards our in-house developed projects, as opposed to taking on the full responsibility of project development. So practically, this means that your financial contribution is converted into a certain number of project units, such as hectares or improved cook stoves or household supported. And these units are then equal to a share of the project which you're supporting. Your contribution covers all costs related to that project share for the entire lifetime of the project, meaning we will use your contribution to finance the planning, implementation, maintenance, monitoring, validation, and verification of that project share. And as a result of your contribution, and as recommended by the various guidance in the market, we support companies with making the right claims in a transparent and accurate manner. So you can tell your positive impact story with a clear and extensive project presentation, with pictures from the project activities, with a contribution certificate that you would receive from us, and a report detailing the activities that were achieved. We would support companies in making a claim which is accurate and proportionate to the amount that you supported, to the amount that you contributed. Your contribution claim should clearly communicate what was done, when it was done, and the expected outcomes of your contribution. We really believe that transparency is crucial to ensure quality, accountability, and address the criticisms that we are still facing in a voluntary carbon market. So we recommend full transparency in claiming contributions and the impacts associated. You can refer to your allocated budget, what it means in terms of household supported or the expected amount of CO2 removed. And one should be clear about the timeline of their contribution as well. In our case, to repeat and emphasize, you are supporting a project share for its entire lifetime. So that was how your contribution engagement with CPI could look like in a nutshell. It's a straightforward journey with a few quick steps. But where would contributions fit within your company's wider climate action strategy? To explain that a bit, let's revisit the climate action journey that Sophia has shared before. You will remember that beyond value chain mitigation is a component of this journey. Why should companies, though, even contribute to any project outside of their value chain? What is their responsibility here? And why are the other steps like measuring carbon footprint, setting reduction targets, and implementing those targets, why are they not enough, or why they need to be complemented with BVCM, with beyond value chain mitigation, even though the other steps are absolutely essential. So whichever step or steps you take on that climate action journey, as of this moment, you are emitting, your company is emitting, and you will continue emitting over time. So if we take a look at this graph here, this line, it shows your emission progression if you continue with business as usual. And the other downward line, it shows that you're reducing your emissions annually, which is a very positive trajectory, of course, and it's the desired trajectory. But however, this gray area under the line, it represents your actual emissions, actual annual emissions. So even if you reduce, you still have emissions every year. For example, let's say that you have an 80-90% emission reduction targets by 2050. But still, by the time you reach your annual reduction targets, you will have accumulated all this gray area, all this gray area that corresponds to a big amount of emissions by the time. In other words, if you want to address your current emissions and impacts, you can only do that by making a positive contribution today, which is by supporting projects outside of your value chain. So for holistic climate action, you must complement your internal decarbonization efforts with reductions and removals beyond your value chain. This way, you have an impact starting from today and not only in the future. And this way, again, you take a step towards both your corporate net zero goals and the societal global net zero goals. So, and we see that we are not alone really in the voluntary carbon market in our efforts to bring contribution claims higher into the climate action agendas of corporates. Different initiatives, companies, and NGOs that we work together and we follow closely, like Sophia mentioned, they also have come up with great guidance on the matter. We give an example from the SBTi here, but altogether we support similar approaches, similar principles. So companies can address a few key principles in credible climate action via contributions. They can maximize mitigation outcomes by ensuring funding for climate and other sustainable development projects. They can meet financing needs of underfinanced technologies or very early stage projects to help them kick off and scale. Contribution approach would enable companies not only support carbon projects, but go beyond carbon and take action on other SDGs as well. And with this approach, companies can also take a role in addressing climate injustices by channeling funding to countries with low responsibility for, but high vulnerability to climate change. So following such principles via the contribution claims approach would make companies real climate leaders in their fields, and it would give strong positive signals to their stakeholders. So as said, many initiatives in the market agree that a company's responsibility is to support projects outside of their value chain. But what is the real result of your contributions? So what is the impact that a company can create with their financial support? I would like to give two examples from our projects to concretize the impact. The first one is our spec boom restoration project in South Africa. So what is spec boom? It's actually the bush here that you can see behind me. It's a bushy plant. And this region in South Africa has gone through a land transformation and degradation since centuries, mostly due to livestock production, intensive grazing activities, and droughts. So as CPI, what do we do here on the field? We restore the area by planting the spec boom, which enhances a biodiversity hotspot ecosystem. It restores soil health and helps avoid erosion in the area. And like all of our projects, this one also has benefits for the community in the area. For example, our restoration activities provide employment opportunities for different communities who currently have unemployment rates surpassing 60%. In addition, we help build structures and education modules that enable people gain access to better healthcare and improve nutrition. And the results and impacts of this project are validated and certified by international standards, Vera and SD Vista. Spec boom restoration is one of our nature-based solution projects. And the second example that I would like to give is about addressing plastic pollution. So this project in Cambodia, it's based in the city of Sihanoukville, where rapid development in the 1990s led to poor waste management and plastic pollution, harming coastal areas and ecosystems. Investment also displayed locals and worsened social inequalities. And what is our role here? What do we want to achieve with our project? We want to collect the plastic waste from the city's coasts, which will significantly reduce marine pollution. And after collection from the beaches, plastic waste is sent to a recovery facility, which is the first of its kind in Cambodia, where they are either upcycled, recycled, or utilized as an alternative energy source, creating a fully circular solution. Upcycled materials are repurposed to construct schools, classrooms for children, or renovate homes for community members. This project is supporting a local initiative that creates employment opportunities with benefits like health insurance for employees and their families, as well as access to additional training opportunities. And again, to ensure the highest impact and project progress, independent third-party verifiers and the ocean-bound plastic standard closely monitors and evaluates all the activities that I just mentioned with regards to this project. So this was just a sneak peek, two examples from our project portfolio and what kind of impacts we can create on the ground in the fields. And we have many more inspiring projects all around the world, including a few in Europe. And next month, we are hosting another webinar where our colleagues will talk about our projects, particularly the touching stories behind what we do there with our local partners. And you will get a real sense of the impact that we can create together on the community's well-being as well as the environment. And we really do hope that you will join us also in a month's time. And we're really looking forward to seeing you there again. And thank you very much for sparing some of your time, some of your valuable time today to listen to us. And I will now leave the floor to Sophia again for the final part of our session.
Thank you very much, Burju. Super informative as always. And I would like to ask you to stay on stage because we've come to the end of the session, which includes questions. So for all of those of you who might have a question that you would like to ask, please feel free to send any questions in the chat and we'll try to cover them now. And any questions that we are not able to cover now, we'll try to get back afterwards. So the first question that I would like to kick us off with is for Burju. And I wanted to know, or the question here is, if you could provide some more details about exactly what happens to the money that people contribute with. What happens to that money? Where does it go?
Yeah, a very valid question for contributions, I think. Yeah, thank you for that question. I will try to briefly respond to it. So basically, with your contribution, we take care of project development. This covers management, this covers implementation and monitoring activities. So for each of our projects, we partner and work closely with our implementation partners from the design process of the project until the completion of it. And we funnel your contribution directly to them. And more specifically, maybe, your contribution is used to conduct project implementation activities throughout the life cycle of the project. So this would include activities like buying seedlings, for example, applying fencing methods for the new seeds, buying equipment, hiring project employees in the local communities, supporting social impact activities, so on and so forth. So your contribution goes directly to the project activities that we conduct in the field. And in every project, there are many milestones to be achieved to ensure its success. So most of our projects are very long term. So it's important to follow these milestones over time, with also including monitoring and verification cycles. So your contributions ensure that those milestones are achieved for your share of the project. And for every project and contribution offer, we share transparently a cost breakdown so that you have the full visibility of what your financial contribution is being used for. So as I said, transparency is really key for us. So from us, you will see a project cost breakdown on how your contribution supports the project that you financially contribute to. And I think that hopefully covers the response to the question.
Thank you, Burju. I have another question here that I will try to cover myself. So I have a question here, which is, what is the difference between a normal carbon credit certificate and a contribution certificate? So I'm going to try to answer that question as clearly as I can, but essentially the contribution certificate that we provide at the end is just a certificate that you have provided the finance for the project, which will then, in most cases for our projects, generate carbon credits. And the carbon credits is retired to ensure there's no double counting or double use of any kind. But the carbon credit in this case is just an assurance mechanism to go through that entire process of making sure that there were achieved outcomes at the end. It is a normal carbon credit. It's not different in any way. What is different is the use case, how we communicate around the use of that carbon credit. So we will still issue a normal carbon credit. We just won't use it for compensation or offsetting. We will just help you to finance the generation of that carbon credit. It will be issued and then it will be retired, and it will be the proof that the project did achieve what it set out to achieve. So I hope that answers your question. We've got lots of questions coming in. That's great. Thank you so much for being so participatory. So I have another question here for Burju, and I hope you can answer this one well as well. The question is, how do you prevent companies, or what mechanism exists to prevent companies from using this contribution product to greenwash internal decarbonization efforts? So I think what this question is aiming at is the internal decarbonization is essential, right? So how can we encourage our clients to not only make contributions, but to also focus internally? Mm-hmm. I believe that's what this question is aimed at.
Yeah, I will try to tackle it. Thanks for the question again. So let me begin with our emphasis on the whole climate action strategy. So at ClimatePartner and ClimatePartner Impact, we really do believe, and as Sofia mentioned at the beginning of our presentation, we do believe that a holistic climate action strategy is essential for every corporate. So we are not picking and choosing between which step is more important or which step comes before or after. We really do believe that every step of the climate action strategy is essential, and they need to be complementary to one another. So that's maybe the first part. And the second part is also how I understand this question, is that how do we prevent companies from using these contributions as greenwashing. Um, and this is, of course, like we cannot kind of monitor what every company is communicating, but we have a claim guidance that we provide as a result of companies' contributions. So we encourage every company to be very transparent and very accurate about the contributions that they make and the expected outcomes from those contributions. And maybe in one of our slides, I have shown a few sentences as examples of contribution claims, how to communicate them. And also in the contribution certificate that we provide, there is a clear explanation of what the expected outcomes are when the contribution was done, and where it was done. Yeah, so like we really try to guide companies in a clear and accurate way to allow them to, yeah, like accurately communicate what their contribution is, rather than going beyond that and saying that they can compensate their emissions with this contribution. We cannot monitor every communication article from every company, but we strongly emphasize our guidance, and also what should not be done with the contribution claims. I hope this covers. Sophia, please add anything, any other points if you want to.
I think you covered it very nicely. And I think it all ties back to the idea that obviously companies that come to us for solutions are responsible for their own communication. We provide them the best practice guidance that we believe in, which is that the contribution initiative should be part of a holistic journey. And we also ensure that we provide the communication guidance to the companies that come to us so that they can feel confident in their communication. But obviously, they are in the end responsible for the communication that they do. So I hope that's clear. And I have one more question that I have in sort of two different formats that I will try to cover myself. And it might be a little bit of a repetition, but I think it could do with some clarification. So the questions that I have here is, I'm going to try to answer it myself. How can companies trust in that the projects that they do finance or contribute to deliver the impact that they promise? And where in this journey do carbon credits get involved? Like, what do carbon credits have to do with the contribution? I think that's where there's a tiny bit of confusion still. So I'll try to explain that. Essentially, the projects themselves are creating amazing impact. And when you contribute to those projects, you're contributing to the impact that we aim to achieve with that project. And most of the time, the finance that you provide will be put into the project at an early stage. So before there has been any outcomes achieved or any outcomes certified. So you're coming into the project at an early stage. And that finance that you're providing is being put into implementing the project, maintaining the projects, doing all of the management that is required. But then we, of course, we don't want to just plant trees and then hope that they grow. We want to monitor those trees over time. We want to take care of those trees over time. And after a period of time, which can be 5 years and 10 years, depending on what type of project we are looking at, we want to look back at our projects and we want to see, did we actually accomplish what we were trying to accomplish, right? And for most of our projects right now, what we are trying to accomplish is the either removal or reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. And there is established processes available on the voluntary carbon market that we can use in order to both see for ourselves that our projects achieved what we wanted them to achieve, but also then certify those outcomes and make those certifications public and put that in a public registry. And uh, that assurance activity of getting it third-party validated and verified, getting the standard to certify it, and then issue carbon credits. This is part of the normal project development process under the voluntary carbon market. So the issuance of carbon credits is kind of the assurance mechanism that shows us at the end what our project actually accomplished. And the company that financed the project, they don't necessarily need these credits because they financed the project early stage. They communicated what we were trying to accomplish. But the assurance mechanism at the end, we still retire it to make sure that it's not used for anything else. And then it's there publicly available in the registry for anyone to go and see what the project actually achieved at the end. So that's that's the assurance mechanism that we use to make sure that we actually know what happened to the project at the end. And that's why we use the carbon credits. But if you use other impact assets, like if you are trying to accomplish other impacts, you're not focused on carbon, but you're focused on biodiversity, or you're focused on plastic, you can use biodiversity credits or plastic credits, which use the same assurance mechanism but looks at another impact at the end to certify that something was accomplished with this project. So that's what we're using the carbon credits for. They are an assurance mechanism to make sure that we actually achieve at the end what we set out to achieve. So I hope that that's clear. And I think that might be the last question that we had. Thank you so much, everyone, for being active. Birgit, do you want
Yeah,
to?
there was one more. Maybe I can.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly.
exciting.
Yeah,
Go for it.
it was about calculating the contribution budget. So I will go back to that slide to clarify it. Those are kind of suggested approaches in the voluntary carbon market to calculate your contribution budget. Yeah, so I will try to explain them briefly, but Sophia, please add also to further clarify it. You're the expert on the topic. So as said, in the voluntary carbon market, lately there was these like suggestions for 3 different approaches. The first one is the ton for ton approach, which is directly linked to a company's carbon footprint. So in this approach, you can calculate your footprint and contribute to a project that will match your footprint amount. So this needs to be a project that issues carbon credits. So this is rather like compared to the other 2 approaches, rather more limited in what kind of projects you can support. And the second approach is money for ton. And here you can allocate a contribution budget based on an internal carbon price that you determine as a company. So you would basically multiply your emissions by the internal carbon price that you determined, and this would give you a total amount that you can channel to impactful projects. They don't have to be carbon projects because you're not going for the ton for ton approach. You're just allocating a carbon fee for your emissions, and then you are channeling your fund, the total budget, to other impactful projects. I mean, this can be also carbon projects, but also, as Sophia mentioned, other projects that would issue biodiversity enhancement credits or plastic credits to ensure the quality of those project activities. And the third one is the money for money approach. Here, you just allocate a share of your revenue. Let's say 1% of your revenue annually goes to impactful projects from the voluntary carbon market, or it doesn't have to be carbon related. It can be a plastics project. It can be a biodiversity project. It's just about allocating a share of your profit or your revenue. So these are the 3 approaches. I hope it clarified and did not confuse you more. But Sophia, if you want to clarify it further, or if there are any more questions, they're very welcome, and we'll try to respond.
Like before, I think you covered it very nicely. All of these 3 budget allocation approaches are good. They have they're each individual pros and cons. So when you move forward as a company and try to decide how to set your budget, you're going to have to think about your own company, your own goals, and what you want to accomplish. But one of the benefits of stepping away from the ton for ton model is, for example, like Burju mentioned, that you can finance things that are not carbon related, and you can also finance more expensive projects because you're not trying to compensate for every single ton that you've emitted. So maybe you can finance more expensive activities and aim a little higher when it comes to quality, for example. There is one last question here, which is a follow-up question to the contribution approaches. Is the ton for ton projects the only ones that can qualify for carbon credits? So carbon credits can be issued from any project that reduces or removes greenhouse gases. And when you and those carbon credits can be generated and then used for many different purposes. They can be used by companies to compensate for your emissions, like in the offsetting narrative that we're used to. They can be used as a quality assurance mechanism to make sure that the project fulfilled its outcomes under the contribution narrative, like we are doing. They can be used for trading. They can be used for many different things. When you decide as a company how much money or how much beyond value chain mitigation you want to engage in, then you can choose different ways of determining how much beyond value chain mitigation you want to finance, basically. So the ton for ton contribution approach, this is the contribution approach where you look at your footprint. You go, okay, we have 100,000 tons emitted each year that we have not been able to reduce. And we want to provide finance to projects to ensure that we cover that entire amount. So we find a carbon projects, for example, that reduces that same amount that we are emitting. That's the idea behind the ton for ton model. So there you don't know the budget upfront. Your budget ends up depending on how expensive the credit that you buy is. And then you buy a carbon credit. With the other allocation approaches, you get a budget. So for example, under money for ton, you still count your carbon footprint, but you multiply it with a carbon fee and you get a total budget. And then you use that total budget towards either carbon credits or other types of impact measurements. So the other budgeting allocation approaches makes you more flexible because you don't need to cover an entire footprint. So I hope that answers the question. I think we might have one more question coming in, but otherwise, I think we are more or less ready. I hope it was clear and that you got a better understanding on what the contribution claims model looked like, what the idea of it is. If you would like to read more about it, I would really encourage you to look at this white paper that we wrote, the ClimatePartner white paper, or any of the other guidances available. Where you can get a more detailed understanding of this concept and how to work with this concept. And if you would like to know more about our projects and about our solution, you're very welcome to attend our next webinar or reach out to our wonderful partnerships team, which Burj is representing today. And we'll be able to tell you more about what we're doing. And Burj, I don't know if you have any last words for us.
No, just really thanks for your time. Thanks for listening and engaging with us in the Q&A in the chat. And yeah, thank you, Sophia, for co-hosting and explaining wonderfully what we are doing, what the contribution claims is. And yeah, looking forward to seeing everyone in the next webinars. And yeah, really also looking forward to hearing from you and partnering in climate action.
Amazing. Thank you, everyone.